Yep.
We're live? All right. So we're doing this live, and we'll be tape recording this too, so you know. I'm Frank Antonori. I'm the Cochise County Supervisor for this district, District 3. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight to get informed on this jail district election that's going to be held in November. What we hope to present to you tonight is basically information that you can use in your decision whether to support or not support the half-cent sales tax to pay for a new jail. We'll all present our sort of rationale and some explanations, and then we hope to answer any questions that you guys might have at the end. We have, of course, Kathleen Gomez. She's my colleague from the board. She's the supervisor for District 2. Of course, Judge Storm, he's the presiding judge for Cochise County Superior Court. Of course, everybody knows the sheriff, Mark Daniels, Commander Bradshaw, and Megan Kennedy, right? All right, so you can be like 4 town halls together. She is the health director. Commander Bradshaw is the corrections commander of the jail, basically. Yeah. So what we did tonight, I'll start out, and we sit down with all the guys. What led to this was there was a lawsuit that was filed against the county challenging the May of 2023 election. There were 3 provisions in that lawsuit. One was that the county cannot directly refer to the ballot questions regarding a tax increase, that they were required to go get 15% of the electorate to sign before it could be put on the ballot. Another one was that approximately 10,000 voters that were on the active voter list were disenfranchised because they weren't given an opportunity to vote in person. And then the third one was that the initiative needed 60% to pass. So it went to the Cochise County Superior Court. Cochise County Superior Court judge ruled in that case that there was no merit to all 3 of those claims. The plaintiff in this case appealed that decision, and it went to the appellate court. The appellate court ruled that there was no merit on the first one and the last one, which was you have to get signatures to put it on the ballot. They said, no, that's not required. And then the third one was that you needed 60% to pass. The judge agreed with the Superior Court's decision that that wasn't a requirement. However, they did say, due to the way the statute was written, by not getting ballots to the active voter list and providing an opportunity for those voters to vote, that there was the potential that some of those voters could be disenfranchised. So that immediately led to 2 more appeals. So the plaintiff appealed the 2 no decisions by the appellate court, and then the county appealed the yes decision on number 2. That went to the Supreme Court, Arizona Supreme Court, and during that phase, there was an election that elected myself and Ms. Gomez, and the 3 of us, including Mr. Crosby, decided it would be better to settle the lawsuit. So we came to a settlement agreement with the plaintiffs, which we conceded that there was potential for disenfranchisement, and we got permission from an Apache County Superior Court judge who oversaw the settlement agreement that we would redo the election to ensure that those potential disenfranchised voters had the opportunity to vote on this decision. So that's what led to this redo. As part of the opportunity to redo this, now that we have a new board, we looked at the business side of this. I talked to the mayor and I talked to quite a few other people. A lot of these smaller communities rely heavily on sales tax. If the tax is too high, particularly in my district, Benson and Willcox, people in Benson drive to Tucson or to Vail, to the Safeway, where it's really hardly any taxes there. Or from Willcox, they drive up to Safford, and they get the differential there. So the small communities who rely heavily on that sales tax lose that revenue. So we tried to find a way to eliminate this long duration half-cent sales tax. And the way we planned on doing it was to focus the tax solely for the purpose of constructing the new jail. Now, once the jail was constructed and the bond was paid off, we were going to immediately suspend the tax and go back to using the general fund to operate and maintain the jail. And then we worked with some bonding companies. Ms. Gomez went with one company, I checked out another. We haven't made a decision yet on which one we're going to use. But they both came back with very favorable interest rates, somewhere between 4 to 4.5%, which is very good. If you try to get a mortgage right now, you're lucky if you get 6% on a mortgage. So with that, and the amount of revenue that was coming in, we have a pretty good idea of what we believe the annual revenue from that half-cent sales tax would be. It would be somewhere between $9 to $10 million a year. The maintenance on that bond is somewhere around $7 million. That would leave in excess of about $2 to $3 million at the end of the year. So what the board decided to do was put all of that towards the principal. So if we were to get a 15-year bond, even though that's what's in your publicity pamphlet, and I have a copy from here. So in your publicity, you'll be getting this in about 3 weeks, Laura?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 3 weeks you'll be getting this in the mail. This is a draft. The official one will be in the mail in about 3 weeks. When you get this, it'll explain in there that the bonding company requires us to get a 15-year bond for a maintenance level in case there's an economic downturn. So if the sales tax suddenly, instead of bringing in $9 million a year, only brings in $7 million a year, we can still pay the debt on the bond. So we have to get this certain dollar amount based on our credit rating and based on the potential revenue. They tell us this is where you have to be as far as bond maintenance. That number's just around $7 million. So we hope the economy continues to at least hang tough and get better. So anything over $7 million, we can then put directly towards the bond payment, which will accelerate the payoff. And we have in the frequently asked questions. Can we hand those out? Oh, right. So we have a frequently asked question little handout here. Hand it out to some of the folks, Jim. In that, it'll explain, we have the amortization schedule in there for the 15-year bond, but then we also have the accelerated payments. And so if we pay this off in 13 years, we save the taxpayers about $5 million in interest. If we pay it off in 11 years, we save about $10 million in interest. So we're going to try to pay this off as quickly as possible. Once that bond is paid, and we make the last payment, we will stop the tax, and then the half-cent sales tax goes away. So somewhere between 10 to 15 years, worst case scenario 15 years, best case scenario 10 years, but somewhere in between there is what we intend the end date for this tax, and this tax will end upon that completion. And that is by design, again, because we want to keep the overall tax rate of Cochise County comparable to neighboring counties. So Pima County and Grand County. So we're going to try to stay competitive and help, of course, these border towns deal with potential people going next door to shop. So that was the main push of that. The other thing we did is we established a budget for the jail, and that budget is $130 million. And that includes all the costs associated with hiring architects and consultants that are going to help us develop the planning process to go build this jail. That's roughly going to be about $10 million. Site prep and utilities, which would be leveling all the ground and diverting water for flood and stormwater runoff, and then of course bringing all the utilities into the site and prepping the site is going to be about $20 million for that. And then about $90 million will be the actual building of the jail. The jail is going to cost approximately $90 million for the building itself. And then we're going to have about $10 million in what we refer to as management reserve to handle inflationary costs, potential inflationary costs associated with materials, so steel, concrete, lumber, and whatnot that may occur. In the negotiations with the future contractor who has not been selected yet, by doing that, the county reduces risk, material risk to the contractor, so that contractor will not inflate his bid in case the material costs go up. So that helps keep the cost down on his bid. So because he doesn't assume the risk for material inflation, he can bid just straight labor costs, what he thinks it's going to cost him in labor costs to build that jail, plus the material price at the time. But if the price of that material at the time of his bid goes up from that, the county is going to absorb that inflation only for the material cost. And again, that helps keep the contractor's bid low, because now he doesn't have to bid risk into his bid. So that's the reason we're doing that. And It'll hopefully be done sometime between November of 2028 and January of 2029. And we'll cut the ribbon and hand the keys to the sheriff and Commander Bradshaw, and we'll start moving the detainees from the old jail over to the new jail. And that's the general plan. I'm going to hand it off to Ms. Gomez now. She's going to kind of explain to you some of the issues, we saw as supervisors with the jail, some of the financial challenges that renovating the existing jail might have, and she can explain that, and then we'll hand it off to the sheriff.
Thank you very much for all of you for showing up, and for those who are listening. So, when I took a tour of the jail, this was in November after I got elected, I was pretty shocked at the conditions, whether you're talking about panels that just can no longer sustain all the cameras, all the IT that's needed, because this building was built over, I guess it was 40 years ago, and it wasn't ever built right to begin with. So much has changed that it just can't support technology. The other issue too is that, for instance, we have an alarm system, but we have fire suppression, meaning we have water, but we didn't have an alarm system. So about a couple weeks ago, the state came in, the fire inspector, and basically was going to shut us down. This is going to be a huge cost. Some people are saying, well, just renovate the jail. It's like a sinking ship, where you're just pouring money into a bottomless hole. It's just too far gone. In fact, it's even so far gone that you can't even use it to store documents. It's just got to be raised. So it's impossible to do that. And I guess the next big question is, what happens if we don't vote for the jail and we don't get the funds for it? We're gonna have to shut it down and renovate what is there, which is going to be an incredible amount of money. For instance, I was saying, the fire inspector came, told us we had to have an alarm system. That's costing us $500,000 just to make sure that the alarm works. And that's just the beginning, or the tip of the iceberg. And as you peel away, the onion is just going to get bigger and bigger. All the costs that are going to be to renovating this place. But I feel that once looking at it, knowing now that we are on everybody's radar, the condition of this jail, if we don't pass this tax, we're going to have to renovate it. And that means moving out all the inmates, putting them in Pinal County. That'll cost us $9 million a year just for transportation. And we're not talking about all the other things that come to it, bringing them back to the courts in Cochise County, taking them back. It's going to be a huge, huge expense and a bigger cost to the taxpayer. The people who are still fighting us on this case, they don't like the fact that when we settled, they needed the two other options. What they don't understand is what it's going to cost the taxpayers if we don't have the money to rebuild the jail. It is going to be, we voted on having it on the same site in Bisbee. It'll be west to where the administrative offices are. So it'll be in the same location. And the other big thing too is the safety of not only the inmates, but the staff. We have about 45% of the staff is from Douglas. We have them from Bisbee, Sierra Vista, and even Elfrida. And those people need a safe place. Also we have, if you want to talk about a moral code, we as elected officials have a duty to keep these people safe. I always say, sometimes you're only a paycheck away from making a bad choice. There's a lot of people living in a situation that, due to their circumstances, they make bad choices, they end up in the county jail. That doesn't mean that they get to be put in a situation where their life will be at risk. So we have a duty to keep them safe. We have a duty to try to be as efficient with the money that we have. We really don't have a big budget. Our county budget is pretty small, and a lot of it comes from grants. It's about $81 million. And so we try very hard to use that money very efficiently and effectively when you consider everything that we have to look at, which is county roads, public works, emergency, Department of Health. And the Department of Health does a lot. In Douglas, we've had so much rain, we have a lot of mosquitoes with West Nile virus. If we have to take that money that we would give to all our departments, even the sheriff's department, to go towards having to deal with removing all inmates and the cost of what that's going to be, there's going to have to be cuts in a lot of these budgets. A lot of our health department, across the board, EMT, all the things that we need to be responsible for. So coming into this, while I did believe very strongly, I'm always against an all mail-in ballot. And if there had been a place for people to vote the day of, we probably wouldn't be here. So because of that, we came in and inherited the situation. I believe that, we needed to do redo, but now we really need to focus on the fact that we do need a jail, because what's going to happen if we don't is just going to be so costly to the county. It's going to affect everyone in a very, very negative way. Whereas sales tax, of course, we're getting people from all over coming through, people from Prieta. Prieta is about 300,000 people, and they do a lot of shopping in Douglas. Douglas was a little concerned about the sales tax. We're up to like 10.5%, but at least it helps the burden, right? Otherwise, it's going to be on the property owners. And that is something, we haven't raised taxes, or taxes weren't raised since 1993, and they were raised last year by, I think it was 2.2%, and we rescinded that to give property owners a break. So that is all going to have to change if we don't vote for this job. So.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to see everybody, and thanks for coming out. A lot going on in the world and stuff, and we're taking some time out to spend with us. And so it's nice to see Cooper and our mayor. Thank you for coming out tonight. Caleb, good to see you, and Chief, there you are back there. Cops always in the back row. I don't know what that means, but I said the same thing. But thank you again for coming. And as you've heard, our jail, when I first started my career, I did on the military in '84, and jumping into law enforcement, we used to book our inmates at the old courthouse downtown Bisbee. If you're in that big white beautiful building there, look up the third floor, you'll see the bars. That was the old jail. I'm not trying to age myself like our commanders, but I did up there with them. In 1985, 86, they opened a new jail, so I got to see them open that up, and then 40 years later, it's my 41st year, the facility this time. And that's based on infrastructure, which we talked a little bit about. I'll have a commander talk more about that. And also for industry standards. Those are two critical, vital points. One, the infrastructure is the money pit. The Tom Hanks movie is the money pit. Second of all, on the industry standard is the liability pit. So the two things are really causing us big grief on that. We did a survey, let me go back for a minute. For the last probably 5-6 years, the commander and my chief of staff at the back, Tom, and all of us have worked hard with experts to tell us what's the best approach. And that's why we sit in front of you tonight. They did a survey for the last election, and the three priorities were inmate and officer safety. That's when officers working at jail, keeping them safe in a modern facility. And also, I have a mandate as a sheriff, you're elected sheriff, to ensure that their welfare is taken care of and they're safe. That's something we strive for every day. Second is mental health. Mental health is a factor in the jail, as we all can imagine. And any questions, let us know on that one. It's real to us on mental health, which is a costly venture, especially when you don't have the infrastructure to support that, or the industry standards to support that, because we don't have the facility. Second, or last one, that's most important, is your quality of life. And both Frank and Kathleen hit on that, is if we don't have a facility, what do we do? And I just met with the mayor and the chief here earlier about just the Willcox jail. Our reduction in staff over here has caused us, we've got in the main facility, and it's just a challenge all around for all public safety, not just the city officers here, but also my deputies and the troopers when it comes to getting transports down to our main facility versus booking it right here on the side of the county. So something we're striving for, we speak all the time on it, but the quality of life is, what you're seeing in Willcox is an example of how we did a survey with the experts, what it would cost if I had to close the facility or the feds come in and start putting restrictions on us, whatever the case may be. That's $9 million annually just to transport to another facility. That doesn't include all the auxiliary costs involved in that. So what we're bringing for you today, and what you're hearing for, what decisions you'll make in November when you vote, is we think is the most efficient and the most effective way to go with this. We're the 10th out of 15 counties to have a jail district. It's not new in Arizona. It's something that a lot of sheriffs have. You talk to sheriffs that have it. They enjoy it because it actually supports the criminal justice system, which is the jail, is the nexus whether it's the courts, probation, law enforcement, we're all addressing that jail one way or another. And I'll leave you with this, any questions, is the fact that the way a jail district works, and this is for those who live in the city, I know the mayor knows this, and Caleb, and the chief, is if you have a jail district, there is no fees to utilize it from city municipalities. If you don't have a district, there's a fee. For example, the city of Sierra Vista, which is a huge contributor to that facility, before we had the jail district, it was $400,000 to $500,000 a year just for working costs. That's a lot of money. So whether you pay through a half cent sales tax or you pay through a user fee, it's very expensive. Tombstone and Chicken City struggle to even pay those, even under a court consolidation plan, which is a business plan between the board of supervisors and the city governments. So again, we looked at all that. This is the most efficient way. Again, thank you for coming out. I look for your questions. I'm going to turn it over to Commander Kenny Bradshaw. Kenny's got about 40 years in the business right behind me. He's retired deputy warden from the state prison, so he's my expert when it comes to how to run the jail.
Thank you, Sheriff. I don't want to take a whole lot of time, and I'm not an elected official, so I can't ask you or tell you how to vote, but I do want to give you guys some stats and some statistics, which are the same, from what a new jail would look like versus what we have now. So one of the biggest problems that we have in Cochise County, as you guys know, is mental health. If the sheriff gets called down here in Circle K for the third time during the day, because some guy's standing out there yelling and screaming and cussing everybody out, he doesn't have a beautiful new mental health facility in the county to take him to. He has to take him to jail, charge him with trespassing, disorderly, and get him into jail. Once they get into jail, if they're so mentally ill, they can't be in general population because they'll be preyed upon by the general population, or they might injure the rest of the general population. Then we have to isolate them. And you or I isolated for any amount of time and start to lose it a little bit. And we're not doing these folks any good whatsoever. In new modern facilities, they have entire living areas dedicated just to those that are suffering from mental illness. And they have mental health professionals that are embedded and work 24 hours a day in these areas. And in these areas, they can monitor them, they can adjust their medication, they can counsel them, and get them back and be a contributing member of the community. Right now, we don't have that. Once they're in the mental health system, or in the criminal justice system, they see a judge, they get released, they don't know any better, they don't show up for court, then they get charged with failure to appear, they get fined, they don't pay the fine, and it's just a big spiral all the way down through the criminal justice system. As Ms. Gomez said, our facility was not built properly from the beginning. They didn't take staff safety into account when they built it. Our officer stations, there's a slide here that you can see as they're rolling through, are just desks thrown in the hallway. There's not a proper control room in the living area where you can do what's called direct supervision, basically. There's a one person sits in the control room and watches all the living areas while another person goes and actually physically checks on all the inmates. So we just had a desk in the hallway, and back 40 years ago when it was built, there was no IP cameras, there was no computers, there was no Cat 5 line. So as you walk through the facility, the inside of the halls have all kinds of conduit and cables and everything else. Looks like the inside of a submarine. And because of that, it runs through all where the inmates move throughout the facility, so it's very, very, very easy to be tampered with as the inmates move through the facility. One big security concern that I can share with you, there's a lot that I can't, is the original facility was built with porcelain fixtures. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've been in hundreds of facilities around the country. The sheriff and I, as we travel, we try to tour different jails and prisons. I have never, ever seen any facility, correctional facility, that has porcelain. Porcelain is broken, it's made of weapons, everything is stainless. Even back 40 years ago when they were building jails and prisons, it was stainless. Our maintenance costs last fiscal year alone were $288,000 just for that one facility. As we heard today, just one issue with the fire alarm has already got us to $400,000. So it's going to be significantly more than that this year. One thing that I want to bring up and add on to if the jail district doesn't pass, is we could be put under what's called a consent decree by the Department of Justice. So a consent decree means that you are not running a good jail. And the Department of Justice says it's not good, it's violating people's civil rights. So they embed a judge and 2 monitors into your facility. And they monitor everything that you do, the grievance process, discipline, how you feed, everything. And the county has to pay fines, and they have to pay the salary of those 3 federal employees for as long as that consent decree is in effect. Maricopa County just got out from under one that was in effect for 15 years. So that could be very, very expensive. And after all the panel speaks, I'll be available for questions if you guys have any. This is Megan Kennedy. She is the Director of Detention and Health.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming. We appreciate you guys showing up to hear we give our spiel about our needs and provide you with the facts to hopefully inform you to make a good decision. So, as it's been said, in 1986, whenever the jail was built, it wasn't built appropriately, it wasn't built to code at the time, and one of the things that was lacking was a medical clinic. And so, our medical clinic now is located where the locker rooms used to be. It's, we made do with what we have, and we've adapted. We provide good care, but we are limited in the services that we are to provide because of the facility age, and lack of space. So the medical clinic is about 12 foot by 14 foot, which is smaller than a lot of people's master bedrooms in their homes, and it's definitely a hindrance. One of the things that has changed over time is the content of the population that we're dealing with. So, 40 years ago, we didn't have the content of the medical problems that we're facing now with individuals that are coming into jail. About 60% of the individuals that are looked into jail are taking medications. So we're dealing with a lot of heavy medical problems, chronic care problems. And being a border community, a border county, we face a lot of issues with substance abuse and border crimes. And so a lot of those individuals that are coming into our facilities have substance abuse problems, and we're having to handle their care and hopefully get them set up on a good path for when they're in the jail. The majority of people that get booked into county jails don't get sent to prison. They're released back into the community. They're released back into our community. And so what better place to start public health if we can, reach these individuals whenever they do come into the facility, get them set up with a good community reentry plan, get them set up with services so that whenever they do enter the community again, they can hopefully become, productive members of the community, and they won't come back to us. The Sheriff's Office is very good at seeking grant funding and obtaining that to help support programs and help support projects. And we were lucky enough to, the medical department was lucky enough to obtain some grant funding last year, and we were really excited about it, and it has absolutely helped in the programs that we are able to supply and with our community reentry programs. But we would have been able to request more grant funding had we had a facility that would support extra programs and extra projects, but we don't have that facility, so we weren't able to request more grant funding. I will be available for questions if you guys have them. Thank you.
Well, I'm Judge David Gore. I'm the presiding judge of Cochise County. What does that mean? That means that I have to do all the administrative stuff that the other judges don't do and drive out to things like this and talk to nice people like you about different topics. Like Sheriff Dale said back when he had a full head of hair, he would go to the main courthouse in Bisbee and drop off the prisoners because that's where everything happens. So that the top 2 floors, depending on how you count floors, 2 or 3 floors of the main courthouse is the old jail. And the courthouse was dedicated in 1934. So from 1985. Is that when that new jail?
86.
86? Okay, so for 50-some years, that's where they housed the prisoners. They had women and juveniles on one floor, they separated them, and they had the men on another floor. I've been up there touring around several times, and I don't know, maybe they had, what, 60, 100 inmates for women and men and juveniles at a time? Seems like there's about that many. But anyway, that worked because there's an elevator there, and you can get people to go up and down the elevator for their court hearings and bring them down and do that. So when they built the new jail, I don't know who approved it. I don't know what the jail standards were at the time, but my impression was there wasn't a lot of thought about the kinds of things that the jail has to do, not just keep people incarcerated and keep them out of our society and keep the people that work there safe, but things like having a courtroom where you could get on an elevator, take somebody down and take them into court. Now they have to transport these guys in vans, guys and women in vans, and take them to the courthouse, which is, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles from the courthouse. And they have to have belly chains, and they're doing a little shuffle because their legs are shackled together. So all the kind of functions that the jail has have to happen somewhere else. So one of the ideas is that you have some facilities within the jail, within the new jail, to have court hearings. So for example, when a police officer decides to arrest somebody and book them into the jail, that starts a clock. And the rest of the court system has to react to that. So a person has the right to have a hearing to determine whether or not they should be held in custody within 24 hours. And they have a right to other kinds of hearings pretty quick. And if there's no place for a judge in the courthouse, then they have to take the person to the courthouse. They wanted me to talk a little bit about probation. Anyway, so that's the idea, is that the new jail is going to be built, and it's going to be mindful about the kinds of things that has to happen for detention purposes. They asked me to talk a little bit about probation because one of my jobs as presiding judge is to be, and we have a chief probation officer, but the chief probation officer works for me, and we coordinate with other agencies on how that goes. But the vast majority of people that go to the Cochise County Jail don't go to prison. The vast majority of people that go to the Cochise County Jail come out on probation. And if there are facilities within the jail to help prepare them for their transition to probation, and hopefully then to not being on probation and reintegrating with the rest of us and being free from, or at least being treated for their mental illness or their substance abuse problems, then we need a facility or space within the jail to do that. So I don't know, again, I don't know who designed the jail, I don't know who built the jail, I don't know who approved the jail back in 1980. They did a terrible job. So the question is not, do we need a new jail? Yeah, we need a new jail. We can't renovate this thing. It's falling apart, and it's just not worth throwing big money after that. I'm an elected official, so I'm not here to advocate for or against any kind of election that's coming up. I'm here to answer questions and provide you with information that I can provide you and help you make that decision. But a sales tax, I think, spreads the cost out over everyone. The half-cent sales tax costs the average person in Cochise County, I think the data was $40 to $60 a year, depending on how much stuff you buy. But that's the fairest way to do it, to spread the love for everybody. So we're here to answer any questions that you have. I'll give the microphone back to her.
I want to give it to Frank too, because we want to tell you what we are going to do about the new jail, how we're going to set standards and benchmarks so that the jail will last for, we'd like to say 100 years, but we're very involved in making sure that this jail is going to be done right. We've hired what they call a owner's rep, and Frank will get into that, but we're very cognizant about making sure that this doesn't happen again, and that every year we're gonna have some kind of a maintenance, like, you know, just like in a home, you gotta check your air conditioning, you gotta, you know, check the vents, you gotta do all these things to make sure that your house is in good standing, and that's what we plan to do. So I'm gonna let Frank talk about the contractor that we have who's representing us and what that means.
So, because of what we've seen with the existing jail, we don't want to have this issue come up 30, 40 years from now again. So what we're gonna try to do, working with, this company called Veneer, they are an owner's rep, V-A-N-I-R, is that it? Yeah, like V-A-N-I-R. So Veneer is a construction consulting company that basically works on behalf of the taxpayers, which is you guys and us. They represent us. They do not represent the builders, they do not represent the architects. They are there to provide us guidance and oversight because they have overseen jail constructions in other counties. So they have a lot of, in other states as well. So they have a lot of experience overseeing. They're kind of like the prime general contractor, let's just say, that's going to be doing this. One of the things that we, in the initial meetings that we had with them, is that we want this jail to be designed to be easily maintained. And as the commander had mentioned, a lot of the technical stuff that's in the old jail runs through the corridors and the cells where the detainees are. So this new design will have dedicated maintenance corridors where all of the plumbing and the wiring and the sewer lines will all be so that the county facilities guys, the county facilities maintenance folks will be able to get into those corridors to maintain the jail without disrupting the jail operation. And the inmates will not be able to get to this stuff. There will be a separate walled off area that will have all this stuff that runs through it. The other thing that I learned is that you know, the commander talked about the porcelain toilets, but they have these new toilets. They're smart toilets. So what happens is a lot of inmates try to flood their cells. They'll stuff toilet paper in there, and they'll try to create problems with guards, and they'll do a lot of other jinky things. But the smart toilets are designed that if you flush them more than 3 times within 30 seconds, they turn off, or they only allow so many flushes per hour, and that prevents them from doing things like that. It also saves water. So we're going to put water-saving devices in there to reduce the water. We're going to put LED lights, other aspects of some of the solar, some of the design of the building to improve heating and cooling during various times. So all that's going to be put into design consideration to save costs in maintaining and operating the jail. The other thing that we're doing is the CHIN group, which was a consultant group that the previous board had hired to work with the sheriff's office and Commander Bradshaw's team to come up with some basic requirements for the jail. They identified that if this jail were to survive 50 years or more, you need to consider designing this jail for about 600 detainees. But right now we don't have that population to support 600. So building a jail for 600 would be a lot more expensive than building it for the current population. So the design will include the support services for potentially 600 inmates for detainees in the future. So the cafeteria will be designed, the kitchen will be designed to support if the jail was the full capacity at 600. The health department section will have the ability for 600. But we're only going to build the detention facilities, the cell blocks, so to speak, the dorms or whatever you want to call it, for about 400 detainees. 100 of those are going to be specialty cells, as the commander can explain in detail, but they're for like juveniles being held as adults, they're for women that are being detained, they're for certain mental health, high attention mental health folks, or people that need to be isolated. Those will be special cells. And then the other 300 will be divided against the category of detainees. Some of them are just guys that got DUIs and were in jail for a couple of days, and some guys are very violent criminals, so that depending on their category, they'll be segregated. Classification, they'll be separated. So the remaining jails will be divided in that aspect, so we can control and operate the jail and reduce the likelihood of both inmate and detention officer safety issues by doing it that way. It makes the jail safer. But if the jail population grows, we have the ability to add 2 more of those dormitories at 100 each to get up to 600, but that may not have to happen for 50 years. So we can come back 50 years from now if we have to add those 2 additional dormitories to add 200. So we're going to build for capacity of 400 now with the support services to support an eventual 600. If we need to expand the jail in the future, we'll be able to do that without having to spend a lot of money to expand the rest of the infrastructure within the jail. And that's kind of about it. And as the judge mentioned, we're going to put a courtroom in there as well, so we can do all the pre-trial stuff in there, their arraignments and some of the other processes to try to get them processed quickly and reduce transportation costs and the costs associated with that, moving them back and forth, which is expensive. And the county attorney who was here tonight had mentioned she's got several programs that she is going to use that facility to get these guys, these low-level offenders, non-violent offenders, out as soon as possible with ankle bracelets and other diversion methods to reduce the impact on the jail costs too. So that's all that asks. We're looking at every way we can to save money without reducing the quality of the jail. We want the jail to last a minimum of 75 years, but we'd like it to last 100 years if it's maintained properly. So that's the intent. So we don't have our grandkids sitting here 50 years from now having the same discussion that we're having now. So that's that. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Do we need the microphone to ask?
What's that?
Do we need the microphone to ask?
Would you
I don't like it myself.
Oh,
But
go ahead.
I don't know who's ever listening to their.
I don't mind passing my phone.
Okay.
We'll just
I really don't. But I do have a big question. Not, it's not my favorite thing, really, it's not.
Really?
Does your camera need
The big one?
Does your camera need a microphone?
No, no.
So I'm just curious, this is pretty basic, and maybe a question for you. If, I know these are being live recorded, I'm just wondering if they're gonna be available on the website to listen to later, like the agenda, the regular board of supervisors meetings, or you can listen to.
So my plan, I'm downloading all of them, but Facebook only retains them for 30 days. So I do have copies of all of them. I'm not planning on putting them all on the jail page of the website, just because it will be too cluttered.
Sure.
But I will put them all on the YouTube channel, where the board meetings are.
Okay,
stored,
that's
so you will be able to
good.
access them. on
No,
there.
that's great, because people will ask any questions. Let's see. I'm just curious why, if, hypothetically, if you had to remodel, why would the detainees have to be shipped to Pinal County as opposed to Graham, Santa Cruz, Pima? There's.
Graham, Santa Cruz, and Greenwood don't have the bed space.
And Greenwood either.
Greenwood only has 40 beds altogether.
Okay, and I don't know, I'm just
Right.
asking.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a matter of
It's a
space.
matter of bed space and contracts. So Santa Cruz actually has a lot of beds, but they prefer to use theirs to try and hold the ICE detainees. They have a lot of government contracts. So the closest place that has the kind of bed space we would need would be Pinal County.
Doesn't Border Patrol doesn't have their own detention?
They-
I'm totally.
So they don't meet any of the standards that we have to maintain.
I see.
And, those kind of border patrol and ICE detention facilities, are for totally short term and for federal detainees only. There's no way we could put chemicals.
Thank you for that. So just, and there was a comment made about the mail-in ballot, and, this isn't a pro or con thing, it's just if somebody is on the list, if somebody does have a mail-in ballot, they always can go to a ballot drop box and drop it off. And if there are restrictions, of course,
132,000, and it's actually decreased. We're down to 123,000. I was surprised at that. So it seems like our population is going down. And then also, there was a comment about the age of the population. We're not a majority of seniors. 2/3 of the population are actually under 60 years old. I'm just looking at statistics. No big deal. I guess, my main concern is that this this excise tax on the ballot, first of all, on the ballot, it says the jail district. I'm assuming the jail district, as from what I can glean, includes all the jails in the county, is that correct? Okay. So on the ballot, and this is the same for 2023 ballot, it doesn't say construction and before it was maintenance and all that, of the new jail. It just says the jails. So hypothetically, if there are extra monies, hypothetically, I'm just putting it out there, that according to the ballot language, it says jails. It doesn't say the new jail in Bisbee. So that's not identified, and I don't know how many people that would raise a red flag for. Because obviously, you just said Willcox here has an issue with the jail, and I'm guessing there are other, we don't have a jail where I live, I don't think, but there are probably other communities that do have jails, and maybe monies from this tax would at some point in the future be put to that.
The issues with the jail, Willcox is a staffing issue right now, based on the demand in the main complex. We had to reroute our people over there. The jail, both here and the service, are more as processing and temporary holding, sometimes long-term based on special conditions, but those aren't two issues. The jail facilities are in good shape in that aspect.
Okay.
Our main complex is where we're addressing.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
And I guess the other thing that I have trouble with is, with the sales tax, let's see, for low-income people and people, let's say a single mom with a child of 2 or 3, this single mom is working hard, probably doesn't make a lot of money, and has more things to buy to support her family, more food, clothing, etc. And she's probably doesn't have time to go out of the county to purchase things elsewhere to avoid the extra tax. So it's kind of a burden on her, whereas the way I see it, for renters, for example, I'm just flipping the other side. If it was a property tax, the lower income people who do not own property, it would be less of a burden because they're not paying the tax out of the tax of the property. That's all. So I personally, I'm sorry to say, I go out of the county to do the majority of my shopping, and that's 3 hours for me. Or an hour and a half. No, I go to Tucson. Or I go to Silver City. I like to make the devil's advocate kind of discussion on you talking about the single mom, right? Who is what is very expensive for her. Right now in Douglas, we have the Department of Health has a huge amount of services for those single moms, whether it's healthcare for the children, vaccinations, education on how to make food, how to bring nutrition and all that. If we don't have that jail, that's going to be one of the things that gets cut. So what I'm saying to you is that if you don't have a jail, we're going to have to cut. And we're going to have to cut services like that. And I was just down there, we had a co-op extension board where we were talking about all the services for poor families, single moms. There's a lot that the Department of Health does. It's quite amazing. They also do the whole thing with the West Nile virus. We have $81 million in our budget. And when you're looking at county roads, we have a county that's as big as Massachusetts. And I think Connecticut combined with $1 million a mile is the cost to pave a road. We are on, just breathing air to get by. So I don't want to cut those services for all those families in Douglas. Douglas has 70% of the people are on access. So yes, it does affect Douglas a lot, but we're able to provide services that they really need. And if we have to cut those services, they're going to be a lot worse off than, maybe going. A lot of them go down to Pueblo where it's cheaper, but a lot of people from maybe come to Douglas because they can get their eggs and their milk and that type of thing. So it's a balance, right? And that's what we have to keep.
And I guess my point was that not to cut the services, but to, I would have appreciated having the option to consider either the ad valorem tax or the excise tax, property tax or sales tax. That we don't have that option. I'm just saying. And I know you all feel strongly about a property tax, I guess.
Councilman Moss got a question in the back there.
While he's getting the mic, I just want to bring up real quick that, with a sales tax, it touches everybody that buys something in the county, whether they're coming from inside the county, outside the county. And, most of the people that utilize the jail itself don't necessarily own property. Only 41% of the people in the county own property. So if we did a property tax, it would be very significant and it would affect only 41% of the entire population of Cochise County would be bearing that burden. Well, sir.
Councilman Laws from Willcox. I've changed my attitude about the tax. You know my attitude. You know what my attitude is. I didn't lie to you. But I've changed, but I'm concerned about, I want to direct this at the supervisors. You've got to pay more. If you get this tax, you can't get qualified people. You got to be able to run this ship. And you're talking about it being bigger. So I would help you promote this whole thing. If you, I want to say promise, but if you went into it with the attitude that we're going to have to pay the county employees more money so they want to work there, so they can make a living, their shift work is, I've been dealing with the jail for 20 years, and the shift work is bad for anybody. This guy here, my favorite guy in the room, but it's like it's hard for them to be away from their family, so you got to pay them. You really do. And Willcox has, through the council, we've raised their wages, and now we don't lose people like we used to. We just don't. And we have people leaving other districts coming here to go to work. So I would like to see you put something in there that even after construction, you've got to keep the jail running. And if it takes this with the bond to get the taxes, to get the bond, then I think you need to pursue that, because you can't keep paying these guys these kind of wages. They're not being able to keep up, and they need to be able to keep up so they stay. I'd like to see this jail back open. This is tremendous on our unit over here, because we have to take people busy now, and so we're absorbing the cost. And I know the jail stuff. My brother-in-law, Billy Darnell, was a sheriff for Hidalgo County for 25 years, and he finally threatened to quit 20 years ago because he said, I can't run the jail anymore. I don't have enough money to run the jail. So he literally shut it down, and the state built a new one in Lawrenceburg, and the government took it over. Maybe someday that might be a solution, but you need to pay more. You need to pay more.
So the way we're going to do that is both Kathleen and I, Supervisor Goins and I, are really working hard on economic development. She's doing a lot in her district with Port of Entry and with businesses in Douglas. I know with the mayor and the meeting, I just was in Benson Tuesday with the city manager there about doing economic development. The problem with Cochise County is Phil Weinbecker will tell you, is we have a lot of ag exemption here because a lot of the industry is agriculture based. We're trying to get more commercial infrastructure type businesses in because those guys are taxed at the 15% assessment ratio that real property is taxed at for commercial businesses. So the more of those types of industries that we can get into this county, the more tax revenue that's going to generate. And as that tax revenue comes up, we're going to transfer that commensurate to support, and we did a 4% pay raise for the frontline deputies and corrections officers this year. As we get that additional revenue from developing the economy, that's what we intend on doing. We're also going to put it towards roads. That's our other priority, is fixing a lot of the roads in this county, and we think we're allowed to degrade a little bit. But we don't want to do it through raising taxes. We want to do it through economic growth, and then spreading that tax base as fairly and evenly amongst the population, as the commander alluded to. That's the reason we went with the sales tax, so that the burden is shared proportionally to the usage of the jail, and from folks from outside the county also chipping in rather than just the property owners paying for it. That was the rationale. Just to mention Ms. Morrison's comment, everybody pays property taxes, whether you own property or not. If I were to raise the property taxes, in this county, you go shopping at Safeway, you're paying property taxes. You go to a gas station, you're paying property taxes, because those businesses, their overhead goes up to pay those property taxes. They pass that overhead on to the consumer. Everybody pays. So it doesn't really, but it will be more negative because it's going to discourage business from coming in here, because a lot of businesses won't come in if the property taxes are too high. So the sales tax is probably the least painful. It's no taxes are fun. Nobody likes paying taxes. I hate paying taxes. But the government has a duty, particularly with this jail. We are obligated under statute, under Title 11, to provide a county jail, and that jail has to meet the standards that our Constitution says. You're innocent until proven guilty. You have to have a humane environment. You have to have due process. You have to have all that stuff. We have to ensure as government to make sure that those requirements are met, and that's the best way we determine to do that is with the sales tax.
You know, I was nervous when we rescinded the property tax this year, because I thought this was going to be a lot of money. You know, it was only $623,000 that was taken out of the budget. So that just goes to show you how much property taxes would have to go up to cover building a new jail, say at $90 million. I mean, I was really shocked with that. And then it is tough because I was at the at the Border Patrol station in Douglas, and we talked about how they're having problems with their staff because ICE just got a $50,000 bonus if you sign up. So even the sheriff had said that was an issue too. So we're competing with, you know, the government who's able to pay these 50,000 bonuses. I mean, how can you tell people not go, you know, stay here, work in our jail, or stay in Cochise County where you can make a $50,000 bonus? But I think for me, and representing my district in Douglas, with 46% of them working in the jail, they want to stay in Douglas. They don't want to go. They want to stay with their families. I call them the tribes because, you know, in the Mexican community, it's generations that want to stay together. And they would just be happy in having a safe place to work.
Okay.
Oh, you have more comment?
I just wanted my 2 cents in there about the employees, because we don't even have a jail over here. And you've got to pay more to come here. You've got to pay more to, so I would like to see that in your budget process, that you will look at that and help the sheriff pay more money, because we start, like I said, we're one of the safest cities in Ghana right now.
It's a challenge because my good friends David Gowan, Gil Griffin, and Lupe Diaz just gave a nice big pay raise to DPS, right? So now all these DPS officers are getting a big chunky pay raise, which then puts the pressure on the sheriff's office to have to match that. And we're saying we're under this constant pressure. Then the feds are doing $25,000 bonuses or $50,000 bonuses and about $70,000 a year for Border Patrol. I mean, this is the battle. We cannot sustain that if we were to try to do it without getting the economy in this county going. So we have to do a two-pronged approach and building the county economy and finding ways to bring industries in here that build buildings that have higher tangible tax value than vacant land that we just walk cows on is the way to do it, because we are not going to make it by just agriculture alone. We have to bring businesses and industry into the county, and that will generate the revenue that then we can use to start bumping up the salaries of our officers, our deputies. Right.
Well, when the tax was explained to me, we were talking about property, blah, 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 and then it went to the highway. That's a good source of funds. People get off here, attract the businesses, they get off here, and they spend their money. I'm just saying, but you gotta have the employees, you gotta help these people support themselves.
So I talked to the mayor, he tipped me off about this dehydrated milk factory potential. Since then, I went down and talked to the dairy guys, they're all in favor. They told me how much it costs them to ship milk all the way to Phoenix, and if they can have it condensed here in the facility. And then I met yesterday with the USDA rep for the state of Arizona, and she's willing to sit down and help us find a company to come out of it. Those are the things I'm talking about, is trying to get industry, buildings. Buildings is what generates the revenue, so we have to get buildings. And then they employ people who buy houses, and then those houses pay profit. That's the sort of, I don't want to use the word trickle-down effect, to get the tax base expanded in this county to generate the revenue we need to sustain and support the stuff that we're doing with the jail and with the roads in the county. That's the way we have to do it.
You know, also on Friday, there was a groundbreaking in the new port of entry, which is going to be state-of-the-art, 32 pods that are conditioned, air conditioned, which is what Nogales does not have. That's why a lot of the produce rots, right? So they're going to be able to come here, 32 pods, be able to come in there. Their fruit won't go bad as quickly. They'll be able to get it across. The technology is state-of-the-art. So now the opportunity is, how do we expand on that? We don't want just commercial warehouses, we want businesses, we want to get part of the drone, why can't we have light manufacturing here to teach our kids robotics, to learn on the job. There's so many things that we can do, and we like to call 191 the economic corridor. 191 because we really feel that we've got to develop and bring economic development east of the Neal Mountains. Sierra Vista's got a lot of stuff going on. We need now to expand it over to our area so that we can grow and, like Frank was saying, grow that tax base so that we can do more things like pay people better and have more services and pay the roads. That's the only way we're going to be able to do it.
Anybody else got a question?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Juan Kwan, and I wonder what the question etiquette here, do you want them all at once, or do we? Okay, I do have a lot of
We have
questions.
another
Based on
55 minutes.
55 minutes, okay.
Okay, don't have to use them all.
No, I hope not. I just have short questions. So I'll begin with just asking for some statistics as you present them. And one of the statistics that perhaps you can help me understand better is the inmate population. You mentioned that they are short-term, long-term. They can be out on ankle monitors, or they can be discharged completely under therapy. Can you help me understand how many are in each category? Those that have to be incarcerated versus those that can be out on treatment, those that are in some form of addiction that need to be vectored off into a different treatment plan that is part of the facilities that you're requesting. So are there such tables? I've been looking for them, but I haven't seen them. And also, how many are ICE detainees versus local county detainees?
So I'll take the second question first. So we don't hold ICE detainees. We are 287G. We just became a 287G, which is a category where we can help serve warrants for ICE on inmates that are in our facility on state charges, not immigration charges. So that's when ICE can come and pick them up. But we don't have a contract with ICE to hold ICE inmates whatsoever. And the sheriff uses a good stat that how many were?
So on the over the last 3 years, we've looked 4,170 people for border-related crimes in this county, and that's collective all law enforcement. For state violations, not immigration, as the commander said. Out of those 4,100 folks that were booked for border crimes, there are less than 300 were foreign folks. So these are U.S. citizens coming here to commit border crimes during that pandemic, if you want to call it something. So not a lot.
And I'll ask Judge Thorne to help answer the first question, because a lot of these programs are new. There's a program called the GRACE program where once an inmate comes in and is identified as being mentally ill, then somebody from the county attorney's office gets involved, and if they agree to go into the GRACE program and get treatment, then there's the possibility that their charges can be released. So we don't have a lot of really good hard stats on that. It hasn't been running that long, but I can tell you our average daily population over the last year is 242. This morning we had 262. And we have 302 beds currently in the current jail. And it's not that we're overpopulated in general, it's those 11 different classifications. So we have juveniles that are charged as adults, male, juveniles that are charged as adults, female, protective custody, trustee, minimum, medium, maximum, isolation, 23-1. 23-1 means that they're locked up 23 hours a day, they get out for an hour. And then we have our supermax. And those are for male and female. So you can see we have 11 different classifications. So 40 years ago when the jail was built, females were committing crimes, and if they weren't getting caught. And now our female population over the last 10 years is just really super increasing. So I'll go through and try to compare some stats that use on our jail management system, and we'll go from there. About 12% of our population is on medically assisted treatment for opioids and substances.
Yes, I was the first of kind of a grouping of questions. I don't want to hog, so if someone wants to cut in, please let me know. And the studies that was done for these buildings, does it take into account the varying populations and how they're segregated as to whether it's per wings or per buildings versus altogether in one complete structure? Just share one central hub, one central cafeteria.
Yes.
So were those considerations as you did your study? And do we have access to those studies in public?
Yes, so the chin planning study is online. If you go to the county website and go to the jail district tab, the chin study is available on there. And all standard jails are one building. It's a whole lot easier to do one structure than all these other outlying areas. The only thing that we would do different is we would have an own special section for those juveniles that are charged as adults. Because even though they're charged as adults, we still have to treat them as juveniles. So that we have to abide by the school lunch program. We have to give them at least 1 hour every day of large muscle mass activity. We have to provide mandatory GED education. So that's a whole different operation all other than the main jail itself.
Thank you. The facilities that you need as far as square footage, what is the percentage in square footage for the treatment area? And what programs go in there? Do those programs exist today?
The programs don't exist today, like Ms. Kennedy said, is we don't have dedicated classrooms. We don't have dedicated areas where we can bring people in for programming. So we try to do it on an individual basis as much as we can, but we are not even to the design phase yet, so I couldn't tell you anything about square footage, how big it's going to be, what the population of that mental health section would be, or the people that need more education might be, or the substance abuse area, those kind of things. So we're not even there yet. We need this tax to pass in order for us to start that kind of planning and architecture.
Thank you. So with respect to that kind of planning process, it seems to me that the planning needs to go ahead of the fundraising, and maybe the fundraising needs to be a smaller part, like a pilot study. What is your plan on that?
So the board is currently in what we would call the preparation for RFPs that we're going to be putting out. We cannot put the RFPs out until we get the tax, and that's what the commander was alluding to. So the RFP for the architects, for example, we can't put that out until we know we have the revenue source to fulfill that contract. If we award a contract to a design firm, an architectural firm to
design. So that will occur after, but we're doing all the preliminary work to develop the RFPs, right? What the scope is gonna be, what the requirements are gonna be for the architect and whatnot. We're doing all that now with Lanier, which is the owner's rep. So we're in that phase with them. We just put them on contract. We also have a project manager, Phil, who's our, he come out of Yavapai County, and they just built a jail up there, so he's got that experience. We brought him in. So those guys are working with us to lay that as far as we can go without the approval of the voters. We're gonna try to get all that preliminary planning done, but we have to have the approval of the voters so that then we can go get the bonds, and then once we get the bond, then we can go forward with the art. Nobody's gonna bid on a contract unless they know the county can pay it. So we have to have that bond in order to start awarding these contracts to these companies.
But isn't it too late in terms of planning? We would begin with a preliminary study to assess what is needed and the ballpark budget, so that I don't know what that number would be to pay for a company like Veneer or Lanier. Is it in the hundreds of thousands? Is it in the millions? Or do you need a whole commitment for the next 15 years of bonds before you could actually?
Jim outlined some conceptual designs for a jail. She gave us, her company gave us a variety of different approaches that we could take. They've got a draft footprint of approximately what the jail would look like and some artists' conceptual drawings. But that's just to give an idea of what the jail would be. The actual process, the design process, would involve initially an architect that we would have to bring in with experience in jail design. We also have to bring in a general contractor, and the plan with Lanier right now is to have both the architect and the general contractor on contract, because they provide information to each other. So some guy that builds a jail can tell the architect, hey, you got me building this crazy wall right here, and I don't know why I'm building that wall. It's very expensive. We move the wall 3 feet this way, it's going to save money. So in order to do that, we have to have the ability to put these guys on contract. The money that we have right now, what we've done is we've segregated it away from, so it's not spent, right? So we were bringing in tax revenue. We firewall that tax revenue, so that revenue is going to basically sit in an interest-bearing account that the county treasurer has. And we're only spending that on jail construction-related costs.
I'm just turning it off and on again.
Are we offline? Or no? So that is the intent right now. I wish Title 48 statute that covers special districts and the state procurement code that requires us to do certain things up until a certain point we can do, but then from there on, we have to have voter approval, because we have to have the money to move forward. Because we can't commit the county unless we know we have the funds to pay.
What would you estimate as a budget for the architect and the builder for their time in doing an assessment and proposal at a rough level, a ballpark?
About 10 million.
They require 10 million?
We're roughly estimating, it could be more, it could be less, but around 10 million. We're estimating the actual construction of the building at about 90 million. All the site prep and everything else is about 20 million to go do all that. All the excavating and the flattening and diverting. Because we went out there and we walked the site. There's 2 washers that run down that are going to have to be diverted to create a nice area there, so we don't have water running into the jail. Like the current jail has water. When it rains, the water runs in the back of the jail. So all of that work is going to be about $20 million. Because there's design work that goes into that as well. So all these companies, we'll have different bidders for different phases. Yes.
The feedback is the judgment has the mic.
Oh.
Oh,
is that what it is?
Yeah.
So that's, right now, that's the tentative budget we've outlined. Lanier is going to be working with us over the next couple of months, so we're going to be having several meetings on this. This is going to be publicly available work sessions that you can watch online. And then we're going to have several jail district meetings where we actually vote as a board on giving direction to Lanier to go forward with certain aspects and phases of this. All of that, we're gonna try to get as much as we can done before the tax would start again on July 1st. So right now, the election's in November. If the voters approve it, the tax does not get turned on until July 1st. So we're gonna try to get done with the current amount of funding that we have right now as much as we can. But if the voters don't approve the tax and don't approve the jail district, the money that we have right now, we will likely have to return. That's why we can't spend it. So we have to be very careful about what we're spending now, because if the voters don't give us the approval, we have $16 million that is sitting in the treasurer's account that we may have to return to the taxpayers. So that's why we can't really go forward until we get that green light from the voters. Then we can start focusing on the planning aspect. It's just the way the Title 48 and the procurement code for the state is. And the fact that we don't have a huge financial reserve as a county. So we don't have the money to do all this. It's just that simple. Like, we're really close on our spending cap anyways.
And what if the preliminary study is in the range of hundreds of thousands? Does the county have that as an amount for a preliminary assessment?
We do, but if the voters don't approve it, we're on the hook for paying that back. Because it would come out of the current jail tax that was suspended on July 31st. So if the voters don't approve the tax in November, potentially we could be forced by the state to either surrender that money back to the state, the 16 some odd million, or find a way to return it to the taxpayers, either through you bringing in your receipts from the last year and a half, showing you bought stuff and getting that half-cent reimbursed to you, or a property tax one-time refund that would return that back. We don't know what option would be enforced, but we don't want to ever have to answer that question. We were hoping the voters will approve this, so we don't have to go down that road to answer the question, what are we going to do with the current $16 million that's been collected? That's a question I don't want to have to answer. So we're hoping the voters will approve it, and then at that point, upon approval in November, we have from November until July 1st to start ramping up to get ready to go. And then hopefully July 1st, when the sales tax gets turned on, we can then quickly implement the bond, get the bond in place, and then we put the RFPs out right August, sometime September at the latest.
Thank you for that clarification. My question remains though that it seems like Cochise County has skipped a step, which is a preliminary assessment step as far as understanding what the statistics are, what the demographics of those who are incarcerated.
That's in the CHIN study.
And then from there, drive the structures and the programs that are needed. I understand that in general, if you were to look at the programs that are needed, drug problems, addiction, and other things that are perhaps non-violent and can be, doesn't have to be jailed. People don't have to be jailed for that. All of those things, what are the basic statistics and how would you?
Can I do the CHIN study? They spent a lot of money. I don't know, it was 305,000 on doing that study that you're talking about. And it was very, very elaborate. It went into a lot of different things that the court systems can do to make sure to lessen the inmate population. It is probably that thick. 200 pages. And actually it's on our website. I would say please go and look at that, and I think it's going to answer all your questions, most of them, because it is very, very, she was very thorough, and it even is kind of way up there.
A lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers, a lot of in the pie kind of side, kind of thinking of what we could do with the new jail and how it could be this and that, which we could never afford to do. But they did look extensively at a lot of the issues, and a lot of it was the programs.
I will definitely go look at it. I just haven't had a chance to rebrowse through the website. My next statistics question has to do with the length of incarceration. Is there a maximum average?
No, we do everything from 24 hours for DUI, if somebody's charged with a capital crime, murder, where they're facing life sentence, then they can stay up to 3 years in the jail, sometimes, but there's no maximum amount of time that somebody can spend in jail. Once they're found guilty of something, if they're sentenced to the Department of Corrections, we try and move them within 30 days to the Department of Corrections.
That would be Arizona.
I can touch a little bit of what you're asking though. In Cochise County Superior Court, we have a program called Early Resolution Court. And the vast majority of people who are charged with felony offenses go into Early Resolution Court. At Early Resolution Court, the defendant is presented with a plea agreement to take care of their case right then and there. The vast majority of those plea agreements are for probation. And the vast majority of those plea agreements for probation say that if you accept the plea agreement, you're going to be released from jail. Okay? That process takes about 2 weeks. Sometimes it takes 1 week, but usually it takes 2 weeks. So I think, and Commander Bradshaw's nodding his head along with me, the majority of people who come into the Cochise County Jail are released within about 2 weeks of being incarcerated most of the time. Some people, if they're facing, for example, a murder charge, that can take a couple of years to go to trial. Some people have a 24-hour sentence for a DUI. It's mandatory that you get 10 days in jail. 9 days of those, that sentence can be suspended if you agree to have treatment. The other misconception that I think you might have is that the jail really isn't the place for drug treatment, because you asked that a couple of times about treatment programs. So I suppose, and I'll leave this to Ms. Kennedy, but I suppose if somebody is withdrawing from opioids, for example, and they're having some kind of medical problems related to that, or alcohol, that they're treated medically for those. But I don't think there's like a AA classes.
And there are. So we have AA, we have.
But there's no, for example, like drug counselors doing talk therapy and going and talking about. That's more for when they're released from probation. If they have drug problems, then the probation department connects them with a mental health service provider, behavioral health service provider like CBIS, for example, is one of the ones that a lot of those go to. So the idea is that we have space for probation and the courts at the jail to be able to assess them, determine if they're going to be a successful candidate for probation, get them out of jail as quickly as possible, and then move them on to not being in jail. Does that help? So I think the answer to your question is 2 weeks.
Okay, that's a good number. That's a solid statistics. And so I would love to see the overall statistics of the queuing through the jail, because that affects the number of rooms and the types of rooms. We were talking about these wings and for different populations. And so I do have some more questions, but I think someone else has a question.
Sections, different sections.
Hi, my name is Caleb Bloshki. I'm the Willcox City Manager. Just a couple of things. As a fellow government entity, I know it's a very difficult situation you guys are in. I think from our residents at the time, that taxes is never something that's easy, obviously, and paying for those things is difficult, and because one of the things that we have completely, we usually talk to our businesses about is our competition isn't the rest of Cochise County, it's usually Graham County, right? It's very quick and convenient to go over to the Walmart or go over to the Thatcher, and I think they're in the 8% already. But I also understand the property taxes. Our community hates property taxes. Any business owner, any resident I talk to already thinks our property taxes are outrageous, and we love to show them that Willcox only gets $80,000 a year from their property taxes. We can't do a lot with the property taxes already. And so totally understand where you guys are coming from. I also think that the census is coming up in 4 years, and hopefully we can get our count up, just because the census numbers we all know are wrong. In Willcox, we have two big demographics. We have a cowboy demographic, I call them, and Hispanic demographic. Both demographics do not trust the government, do not want to disclose information to the government, but it hurts us as a government that's trying to provide services to them because we don't get those state share revenues. So I just wanted to say those couple things. But I was curious, long-term operations as you move forward. I know that we have a big economic development plan. We'd love to get other businesses in here. But is there going to be staff increases? How are you going to pay for those operations in the long term? Are there going to be other cuts to Cochise County's government?
As far as the staff, I'll leave that up to Commander Branch. There may be some requirement to increase staff on the jail. There may be some automation or some innovation or design features that we could put in to reduce the number of personnel needed to operate the jail. I don't know. I toured the state prison that sent her down a couple of years ago, where I saw a lot of automation there. That was a prison, right? So they have a big control room, and they have the ability to open and close jail cell doors. And the director for the corrections department at the time said that he was able to dramatically reduce some of the corrections officers involved in the oversight of the jail, because they have now this command center type structure that they can operate out of, and they only had to have the corrections officers that were actually supervising and moving inmates, and of course there's a reaction team. Our jail's not set up that way, but it did give me ideas that there may be ways to save money through doing certain innovations and design features to reduce. Like Commander said, he's got guys sitting at a desk in the hallway because they have to be able to see down certain hallways. I don't know. I'm just saying, when we're going through that process, we're designing efficiencies in the operational costs related to utilities, water, electrical bills, to try to reduce that cost as much as possible. The labor costs are going to be dependent on the sheriff's office and the commander to determine what he needs to staff that jail. And then he'll come to us and we'll have to decide as a board how much money is available to fund that and how much we're willing to give him to support what he needs to run that jail. We'll have to have that discussion. I don't know what he's going to do. I just don't.
And just one other thing I just want to say too with I know that for the city of Willcox, most of our residents don't recognize it, but sales tax is the biggest way that we tax people coming through on the I-10.
Right.
With Benson and Willcox in these areas, the majority, it doesn't put the burden on our residents at all. It passes it on to other people that aren't from our community that we're out visiting. We hope they spend their money, but they usually typically don't see that as well. And so, and I just want to share one other stat that I think it was a learning curve for me is I think there's 15 counties in Arizona, and 9 of those counties have sales tax, excise tax that pays for jail district right now. So I thought that was an interesting stat.
Councilman, did you have another question?
I just wanted to let everybody know that, like I said, I've been in the jail system for 20 years, and it's like, we thought about one time here, I was mayor for 10 years, we thought one time here, we were going to build our own jail. We didn't pay all the sheriff, we just build our own jail. So we looked into it. And it's about $2 million a year for a little tiny 12-man unit. And not only that, what really gets you, everybody needs to understand in here is that these guys, we want them to jail people that are bad. And when we keep them off the streets, if they're really bad, like mentally. The average person, if I'm wrong, Sheriff, you tell me, the average person that goes to jail has mental issues is $88 grand the minute you put handcuffs on. $88,000 by the time you get him out of the system. And it's like, wow, no city can handle that, doesn't want that, but we want you to do it without money. You know what I mean? It's easy to throw the blame, but you gotta realize what you're dealing with. And the new jail, I think would take care of a lot of issues like that. You might be able to get them out quicker.
Well, and 65% of the inmate population has mental health issues, or drug or something like that. And I don't know, just last week there was quite a big article on the rising mental health issue in Cochise County. So it's not going away, or it's not going to decrease, it's only going to go up.
Mayor.
I just have a quick question. I know there was talks of different places you're gonna put the jail, but I guess with this vote, is this gonna be the final spot where the jail's gonna go there in Bisbee?
We like it in Willcox.
You know, the problem is, and I was a big proponent in having it there, is that you have all the infrastructure there already. In fact, there's, you know, the hospital's right down the road, you have the sewage and the water, it just can be expanded. Plus, it's a county seat. So Bisbee has been the county seat for a long time, and to take that away from them is just not fair. I just, you know, I know that my co-father would like it somewhere else, but I really believe from the beginning that it needs to stay where it is. It's going to be the most cost-effective way to do it. So yeah, we're keeping it in Bisbee unless the earth falls apart and there's a big earthquake, then maybe we'll talk about it somewhere else. But I
We got a
think
lot
it's-
of flat land here in Willcox.
Unfortunately, half of it's in the floodplain.
We have to rebuild it up.
We have to build it up 5 feet before we build it, so.
Mayor, one of the other considerations is transportation. All the Superior Courts are going to be accessible to 1.5 areas here and stuff. So if we had moved it any further away from Bisbee, that just increases our transport costs. And we go to court 10 times a day.
Can I ask one more too? Within the transportation costs, Sheriff, you were mentioning before, so the city of Willcox, through our consolidated court agreement, we pay like anywhere between $60,000 to $90,000 a year, depending on how many people. That cost would go away for the city?
On jail district, yes, it's by law.
On a jail district, so we have, and even this year, we had to cut library staff, we run on a very, very tight budget, so we would have $90,000 back in our budget.
Yes.
So you said it was like $200 or $300 a booking or something? What do they get a jail district?
Yeah, for the first day, it's like $314, and then it's $77 and some change every day thereafter.
What about transportation costs? Would that be included if there was a transit
So you
service?
guys are part of the court consolidation, which is a business agreement between court supervisors and courts and you all too. So that's reduced your cost a little bit, but in our jail district, there is no fee, so you have, once this district passes, you all need to go back with the board and courts and say, how can we negotiate something better? Because that includes prosecution, for you guys too.
We're working just so you're aware, we're working a resolution right now, the board is right now, because the intent is to dissolve the jail district once the bond is paid. So this issue came up in Pachuca City, and Tombstone, because they are not part of the system. They would have to incur significant costs when the district gets dissolved. So Sharon Gilman and Joe Casey and I and Kathleen, Mr. Crosby are working on a resolution to renegotiate that now to absorb a lot of that cost at the county level so that cost is not passed on to the cities. So we're in the process of doing that now. So when the jail district goes away, you will not have to pay for that stuff. That's the plan.
And I don't want to speak for our chief, but I think that's always a concern. We have limited officers here. Seems like we get a lot of the I-10 traffic crime that comes through that's not our local crime, but we deal with it, and we're always down an officer that has to transport constantly, going back and forth. And that's the only problem we have with Bisbee is the farthest place from Willcox. Service is closer, Tombstone's closer, so it doesn't serve this part of the county. It's fair to Bisbee because they're happy with it. But
yeah, but you know, you have a lot of people in Douglas working there, 46% of them.
we got Willcox people that
She's kidding.
kidding. I'm kidding. Just harassing.
But you know, I understand, I wish it could be, we need that kind of.
But transportation could address that problem. It could help our local police department out and our community out.
So make sure you get with Gilman
Yeah.
and talk to Sharon about it too, to make sure all your concerns are addressed that you guys have.
But he's talking something totally different right now.
So
You're talking about the current transportation challenge right now.
currently out now.
Yes, that's not part of corporate consolidation, transportation is not. And we remember the mayor earlier to talk about that, I know Mike and I spoke numerous times about this too. Based on the demand in NGO, we have closed this, but we're taking all your transportation 24/7. All you do will come get them, to keep your officers in the area based on restriction. And there are some drops here and there, don't get me wrong, chief knows what we're talking about there.
No, it's not.
No, so it's as they're available.
As the rate, yes.
The general 95, 155.
And then, Patrol picks up
Trying to help you guys out.
We're trying to increase that, we're gonna put it on call.
There was a change in the way the jail runs too, Sheriff. You require 2 people now 24/7, and for years, when Eddie was here, it's like one guy.
And
I go there to criticize Martin, and that's one guy.
that,
He had me, and him, we could put down in jail, or we had jail.
Unfortunately, in our Arizona County Sheriff's pool for liability, the biggest liability you have in this county is that jail. And they put a lot of pressure on us to make sure that we have 2 in there. Because if somebody goes wrong with 1, he's in there fighting somebody, we had to have 2. And that's just added more pressure and more pressure. So it's just, I wish it was so simple.
And just get a microphone.
Hope she had a couple of words.
Thank
you, ma'am.
She was also there. Thank you very much. Do you have a question? Okay. I just want to say that I recognize that there are a lot of services in Cochise County, all kinds of services, and Douglas, I'm sure, has a lot. I guess my perspective is coming from a very rural part of the county and part of your district. And there are other rural areas of the district, as you know. I'm just saying that was where I was coming from when I was thinking of the low income people. And now there are services there.
Exactly, like Purteville, I grew up in Purteville, it is part of the county, McNeil, terrible, they need so much services.
I'm just saying that was my point.
Right.
When I was saying sales tax and the cost of food and the cost of supplies for single mothers.
That's outside.
And you referenced Douglas a lot,
Yes.
which is fine, that's your orientation. But
No, it's
you're
not.
just, excuse me.
No,
I just would like to finish my sentence. I looked at the map and the district is huge, your district is huge, and it does include, as I'm sure you're well aware, it includes a lot of roads. That's all I want to say about that. I want to ask,
But I'd
I would
like
like-
to, wait, I mean, you asked me, you commented on the statement I said. Yes, it is a big district, and I represent Bisbee by fighting for them to have the jail there and doing things for them by, like having the Bisbee bike path. I do things for Naco, because that's a very rural area. I do things for Purteville, because it's a very rural area.
I haven't seen you in Portal.
Huh? You have what?
I haven't seen you in
Yeah, I was in Portal. I was in Portal twice.
I
was
just
like,
said I haven't seen you there.
talked to the fire department, the volunteer, I was there, and let me finish, let me finish.
I don't want to get into it.
You have to let me finish also.
Sure, go right ahead.
So I am very concerned about what's east of New Mountains, because so much of the county money has gone to service in other areas. And I do go to Portal, and I do, the precinct 50, which you're in, was the one that voted me in.
Yes, I know.
And I grew up with those guys.
I'm very aware of all of that.
So when I talk about the services that are in Douglas, a lot of the people from Portal use that, a lot of people from Elfrida, Purteville, and even Bisbee come to Douglas for their services.
Okay, it really had to do with the sales tax, that was my point. So that was kind of a side. I do want to ask, it sounds like there are a lot of mental health and addiction problems that cause people to get into jail. So I guess my concern I'm wondering the percentage of the budget. The jail and the sheriff's department, I'm really not sure how it all divides up, but the jail fund is a huge part of the whole county's budget, correct? Is it over 4th or something?
for just the jail? So.
Or the babies, I don't know.
So when we talk about maintenance of effort.
No, I'm not even referring to that. I'm just
Trying to ask you a question.
No, I'm just referring to the jail, maybe the sheriff's department, the law enforcement. Let's just say law enforcement. So I guess my question maybe is really more for you. So the health services, the mental health, addiction, the percentage of that, of the budget that goes to that, as in prevention of people getting into the jail, as opposed to the jail. I'm not.
To stave off people ending up in jail?
Yeah, to help people to minimize the number of addiction problems and mental health
So
problems.
I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head, but we've received several $1 million both from the state and the federal government for various drug treatment programs in the county that we've approved and are run by our health department. The county health department runs those. And I'm not, I'll defer to our health department director for running those programs and whatnot. We just provide the funding, through the various grants.
Yeah.
The sheriff's department gets a sizable portion of the budget, the health department probably gets the next sizable portion of the budget. So that's the majority of the county budget goes to public safety, sheriff's office, and the health department.
I was looking on the side for that.
Allison,
To keep people happy.
Allison, let me just say this to you, the normal budget, if you ask the mayor, or the mayor's here in the room for Willcox, an average budget for law enforcement and fire, if you're going to run fires, is half, yeah, it's over 50%. Yeah, we don't run fire. Ours right now, we used to run the health department from the 10 side, I was just asking my budget. When I first started, we were at 15% of the overall budget, which the general fund's around, what do you guys, 83 million this year? So we're a little over 20%, so we don't gouge the county budget, I promise you that.
Oh, and I was encouraged, my concern is just, we have more and more people that are showing up as jail because they have these mental problems.
Can I add something that might help a little bit? Rural County struggle with it, we're not exceptions to that, is we have a care team based on 100% grant, trust you all know them. That care team responds to anybody in Cochise County, whether it be a school, whether it be Willcox PD, ourselves. In fact, I just got a text from our center for one, hey, my sister, she needs help, Sheriff, can you respond to your care team? And I'm gonna take care of the needs over. We have that, and I'm trying to extend that, expires next year, because that's a beautiful grant, I got $1 million grant right on match, I got another $1 million to match that. So, we're trying to keep people out of jail, trying to avoid those critical incidents before they become a critical event. So we're trying, Allison, but Rural County's fighting this. I know Kathy's got a great plan with mental health, we're gonna keep pushing that too.
Because, right now, we don't have a county jail. If we had a county jail, my plan is, and I understand Senator Gowan is working with Senator Fernandez in Yuma, where they're actually have a program where people can go, become a doctor. They don't have to pay anything, but they have to spend 15 years in a rural community in Arizona. They would like to, they have a mental health board. They would like to have another facility. And so I would like to have another where the county hospital was, because we're the second largest city in Cochise County. And with that, we could save a lot of money because as you were saying, when they have to send somebody who's, in front of the Circle K, spitting that everyone's saying, I'm gonna kill you, they take them to get a SAS. I think Tucson was $36,000.
30 to 40,000 for under Rule 11 competency.
And if you take them to Phoenix, it's 100,000. So that down the road is something that the county can do, so that we can actually have a separate ward that would deal with mental health issues, could house them, could have treatment programs, and that way that's the next step into dealing with all the mental health crisis that we have in our county.
So they can't be assessed.
Well, and just to add to that, with the grant funding that we received in 2024, that grant funding that Detention Health Services received was focusing on community reentry efforts and also substance abuse issues. And in 2024, our recidivism rate was 6.79, and in 2025, our recidivism rate was 5.28. So it is effective, and it's being very effective. It is going to.
Very good.
Thank you. I think we have only about 10 minutes left here, so I want to honor that time. But just a quick question as far as the statistics go. I know that you pointed me to the website for some documents. I will certainly have a look at that. Maybe I have to come back to the next meeting whenever you have that. But I will.
We're gonna be in the next one in Tucson tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
Look at it.
Okay, that's a very quick study, 200 pages.
Try to do another one in Benson the following week too, so.
Okay.
Shoot down the highway to Benson.
Okay, but just in case between now and then, probably I won't have time to read up everything, but who would be the best for me to contact regarding incarceration, population?
One of us too.
Okay.
If it's related to the construction and the contracting stuff,
Okay.
shoot it to me.
Okay.
And we'll take care of it.
So those are the quick questions, and I wanted to follow up on the taxing issues from the city manager. You mentioned that it appears that the tourists, the people who pass by I-10 are paying a lot of the burden. I I wonder, maybe this is a question for Willcox too, for those that have bigger ticket items like tractors, cars, how are their businesses impacted across, all of Cochise County? I mean, do people go to Tucson and buy a tractor, or Benson? Well, Benson is their stuff, but I don't have statistics on that, and I wonder if maybe we should take care of those people to make sure that Cochise don't lose those tax revenue.
It is a big problem. So the last Eller School data that I saw from University of Arizona, Eller School has an excellent resource for getting tax information for the entire state. And when we look at Cochise County, they estimate our out-of-county sales tax revenue to be about 20 to 25%. So that's people that don't live in the county spending money here. But you're correct, the big ticket item stuff, a lot of people do go out of county to buy big ticket items that they know they're gonna spend. The construction sales tax was a good revenue generator for us when we had housing. Now we have issues with what's killing us is the high interest rates. So we used to generate a lot of sales tax through construction sales taxes. That's gone down dramatically, so we're losing that, and we are losing the big ticket items. It is a challenge. So we, again, trying to balance property versus, the only two mechanisms is we don't do income tax, okay? So we can't, that's a three-legged stool, right? We have income tax, property tax, and sales tax. It's the only way we can raise taxes in Arizona. And counties and cities do not have, the state took away the authority for us to do income taxes, thankfully. Because I know the city of Tucson was thinking about doing a city income tax at one time. So the legislature put an end to that real quick. So that only leaves us with two revenue sources. And that's the challenge. If you look at those two revenue sources, which one would be the best, what we foresee is the least impact on county residents? So like Kathleen and I were saying earlier, if the voters don't approve this tax, we still have this problem that we have to deal with this jail. And I do not believe renovating the jail is the way to go. That will just be spending a lot of money on something that's going to end up not only lasting 10, 15 years anyways. We're going to be back at this square one anyway. So it's better to just bite the bullet and build a new jail. To do that, we're going to have to raise property taxes if the voters don't give us. The board has the authority to raise property taxes without voter approval. For sales tax, we have to go to the voters to get a sales tax approval. So we still have to generate the revenue to build a new jail. The sheriff and I know we'll be trying to go find additional revenue sources through grants. If we can find more money if the voters don't approve it, but that's not likely to happen. I think, the sheriff's already gotten $20 million from the state to help offset the cost of this thing. I don't think we're going to be able to get much more. We might, but that's a maybe, not. So the rest of it's going to have to come from somewhere. So if we have to raise property taxes, you're talking about, oh gosh, I don't even want to say it because it'll be probably 6 to 8% increase in property taxes, and that's people will notice that. That is, and then because if you go and the businesses are really going to notice because residential property is a 10% assessment ratio. And commercial properties at 15%. So the businesses are going to really notice that increase in the property taxes, and we will hear a lot of screaming if that goes down. So that's why we're trying to stay away from raising property taxes. The most palatable way to do it and to have other people chip in that are not from Cochise County is the sales tax. But we want it to end as quickly as possible. We want to get that sales tax, get the jail paid for, and get that sales tax off the books. So hopefully in 10, 11 years, we can delete that tax. Sure, yes ma'am.
What did you say the estimated annual amount per citizen of the county would average out to be?
So under complete operation and construction was $40 per ton, 67 action. That came from the Arizona Department of Revenue.
So if it was just the citizens of Cochise County,
Which is not.
no, and that's why they're basing it on it. If it was just the citizens paying that, it would be about 67, but the low would be depending on how many tourists come through, how many people,
plan for 17 years. And the reason, that's for the district, the jail district. We have to have that because there's a lag in the amount of time from when the voters approve it to when we can go and start the sales tax again. So there's a 6-month lag, because the state requires us to notify them 6 months before. It takes them to update all the software for all these point of sale machines and whatnot. So the soonest we'd be able to turn the tax on is 1 July. That is also the soonest that we can start the process for getting the bond. So you're probably looking at later in the year by the time we get the bond agreement. So you're probably talking September, October before the bond company approves the bond, because you have to have validated revenue first. So we would need 3 months of revenue from that sales tax, so the bond company knows the money is coming in to pay the bond. And then we would be able to get the bond. So we got the bond planned for 15 years. 15 years for the bond. So you're looking at about a year to get everything in place, and then 15 years in the bond. But we asked for 17 years for the district to cover any unforeseen issues in there, so we added that extra in there. So there's 17 years for the district. Our intent is only to get a 15-year bond. We could, and we will, if I have my way, pay that off sooner. Because we're going to take every spare dollar that's generated from that sales tax at the end of the year and pay principal down on that bond, and pay that bond off as quickly as possible. And if the economy gets better, who knows? We can pay it off maybe even faster, but it depends on if we get the economy going and if it stays as good as it's currently getting. The last month came in, June, we generated $1 million in sales tax revenue from that M7 sales tax in June. So that would be an average of $12 million a year. So we can put $5 million towards the bond at the end of the year if this continues like that. June was a very good month for Cochise County. So I'm hoping to pay it off as quickly as possible.
A 15-year bond at an average of $67 per county citizen, which is probably even less, comes out to $1,005 for a facility that's going to benefit our county for years and years to come. It seems pretty simple.
And that's just used up, like Mayor said, if you just all the usual, like this is I-10 for example.
Right.
$600 for 15 years to have a brand new jail.
Right.
I don't know how much better we could do with it. I really don't.
And again, that's it. We're trying to do this least painful way possible. And that is getting the voters' approval. If we don't get voter approval, it's going to be a challenge, and it may be more painful for Plan B.
And I'd like to say that we don't have, it's not like we're going to be able to slide through for the next 10 years and keep the jail as it is. There is going to be action by the state, or the says by the federal government. It is going to happen. It is not going to go away. It's like a big cloud over here, just waiting to see what happens, and it's going to come down on us, and then we'll have to have a serious problem. Because we're talking about so much money that could be staying here that's going to be paid out to someone else.
Yeah, the unknown is a lot scarier than $67 worst case scenario year.
If we get put under consent agreement by the Department of Justice, you're looking at a huge property tax.
Right. The sheriff's office in Maricopa got put under a decree about the feds. The report's order. I just saw the number over $300 million is what they paid the feds to have a decree. Well, it's just ridiculous.
Oh, all right. We got 4 minutes.
So, okay, final topic that I wanted to follow up on, the cost. And I just wanted to say that there's an issue of whether to do, and then what to do, and how to do it. So I just wanted to go back to my first set of questions that to understand the statistics so that we could understand what it is that we're doing. And then it would, the plans will inform how we're going to do it. So to the question of cost, it seems like a negligible enough cost, not negligible. Some people will be impacted more greatly than others, but I think for law and order, for peace in Cochise, that criminals who need to get locked up and people who need treatment get access to it. And it goes to the question of how are we going to do it and what is it that we need to do? Is it for 2 days, 2 weeks? Most people are in for 2 weeks. What does that queue look like? And so I would like to say that a little bit more, and I hope that you can help me with those numbers. I have had a chance to look at the website, I just haven't been able to find it, so I would appreciate your help very much. Thank you. And then my last set of question, just to end with this, and maybe I'll follow up with you the next time. As far as a process for this, not disenfranchising voters in the past, two things that I had seen disenfranchises the voters. One is that mistakes were made, 13,000 or so voters didn't get their mail-in ballots. That's one aspect. And there's a question that you brought up dealing with the lawsuit. And I won't go into that right now, but fundamentally, I want to tackle one issue with you. I've heard a little bit about mail-in ballots. I don't know how you all feel about mail-in ballots, but as I studied it more in these past 4 years, mail-in ballot is one of the greatest sources for fraud, and we must eliminate that in Cochise County. And I would welcome more discussions and debate to see how we actually conduct a free and fair election so that ballots don't get stuffed. USA organizations don't get money to go hire people to stuff them, and all of those things that are connected together.
So we are looking at, we've had 2 work sessions so far. We're going to have a few more over the next year dealing with elections. But for this election, I want to be clear. State statute allows for mail-in ballots. Okay, the county does not have the authority.
Well, you do because it's a local issue.
Yeah.
If it makes every electorate feel comfortable, what do you want to do?
I got you. The legislature enabled the mail-in ballot system, and right now we're going to follow time.
Just because people sell side
I got you. But we've got to work with our legislature on that, and I know there's a lot. There's an election in 2026. We've got guys running for Secretary of State, guys running for governor, guys running. A lot of those are actually running on that election reform aspect. We're going to do what we can at the county level, but we got to follow. I got to follow law because I sure as heck don't want to go to jail.
The feds.
I don't want to end up in jail.
Well, if the feds require you to run an election in person without.
Yeah, that's a different story.
If the feds require you, would you do it?
No, yeah, if it comes up, yeah. Sure.
Okay. So would you view that as a superior way that would just make everybody agree that we've done it for hundreds of years? We've always voted this way. We've never used mail-in voting until like 30, 40 years ago.
We got work sessions coming up. We'll talk about that. But for this election, what I wanted to say is we're going to do mail-in ballots for this election. And we're going to have vote centers available for people to vote in person, which did not occur last time. And we're going to submit publicity pamphlets going to be sent out to all registered active voters. And we're going to try to advertise as much as we can to the inactive voters that we're going to be having in the election so that they'll be able to vote, which was the problem last time. So we remedied the issues that were raised in the lawsuit. So we've addressed those issues and we remedied them for this redo election. What you're talking about is a bigger problem.
Here you do have a choice. Cochise County does have a choice, and I'm hearing that you're not willing to make a choice.
No,
we don't have a choice. We follow the law, that's our choice.
Yeah, that's so true.
Cochise County can hold elections in person, hang out here. And I don't accept other answers because there's not. I'm sorry, Judge, I have to disagree.
Well, my job is easy. The legislature writes down the law and says this is the way you're supposed to
Well,
do it.
show me in the law where it is. I don't see it.
Come down to our meetings. And speak as board. Yeah, we got to go to jail. We can have some.
All the meetings I can.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it.
coming. David, it's nice to, yes, sir. Nice to meet you.
Right.